Hello, parents, guardians, and grown-ups of IB history students. My name is Betsy Thornewood, and I am your student's IB history teacher this year. And this is our back to school night presentation. Consider yourselves lucky. If we were doing this in person, you would have to do some kind of activity or task. I make you guys work, but since we're doing this digitally, we're getting off a little bit easier than normal. So count yourselves lucky. So first, I just want to talk a little bit about who I am. Since I get to spend the next semester with your students getting to know them, it's only fair that you get to know a little bit about me. My name is Betsy Thornewood, as I mentioned. I teach IB History HL2 this semester, and then next semester I will be teaching World History 10, as well as the IB Core and TOK class for our juniors who are completing the IB diploma. There's my email. It's also on our Canvas page, several places, so don't hesitate to reach out and contact me if you've got a question, comment, or concern. In the picture, you can see my three lovely boys. Chaos is right there on the left side. Edward is the oldest in the center, and then the baby Hunter is off to the right. Those are the boys I spend my days with when I'm not teaching your kiddos. And they keep me definitely busy. It'll be a while though until I am sitting where you are. Edward is set to start kindergarten next year, so that'll be a very exciting time for us and our family. So I wanted to start this presentation with just a little bit about why students don't like taking history, don't like studying it. While I might be totally in love, I'm also a little bit biased to loving history, whereas students aren't always in love with it. And there's a couple of reasons why. First, they think that it's just boring and confusing. A lot of history gets taught where you're just memorizing name after name after name and date after date after date from all these places you've never heard of. And it's like, well, what's the point? Students will often tell me that their people that we talk about are nothing like me, or the stories that are important to them are never told, right? We have a very common narrative of whose story matters in history, and students often feel like that's not the story that's interesting to them or the story that reflects who they are and their identity. And then another reason why students don't like studying history is that they just kind of feel it is not important. They'll never use it again. They just need to learn this stuff to pass a test, and then they will move on with their merry way. You see this a lot in our science, technology-minded kiddos who are like, yeah, I just want to be a doctor. What does this have to do with me? But it's my job, right, to disrupt that thinking in students, right? To tell them that history is not all of those negative, boring things that they've associated with it, but that it's actually something that is alive and inspiring. That students are making history daily. I mean, you just have to look at our headlines to know that history is unfolding and happening all around us. It's absolutely relevant to our society today. So many problems that we're seeing and reading about have their origins directly in history, right? These problems didn't come out of a vacuum of nowhere. Certain choices were made, things happened, laws were passed, policies were enacted that have gotten us to where we are today. So if we want to engage with that and change it, we have to know that history, know that past. So it's one of the things I try to inspire in our students. And then history is absolutely engaging. One of the things I try to do is highlight different voices that we don't commonly hear as much in the main historical narrative. So we try to hear from women, from people of color, from disabled persons, from different voices that aren't the norm. So what does that mean, and how does it translate to what directly we're looking at in history? This year, because of the shortened time frame, the 4x4, as well as some changes that IB has made to their tests come spring, we've been able to sort of narrow down and focus in on fewer topics than normal to still be prepared for the IB exam. And so we're focusing first on rights and protest, thinking about how people agitate for change. And there are 2 case studies associated with that. We've just wrapped up our US case study, looking at the Black American Civil Rights Movement from about 1954 to 1965. And we'll be starting our look at South African civil rights from the same comparable time period, 48 to about 64, thinking about how Black South Africans agitated for change and how it was similar to or different than what Black Americans did. From there, we're really going to devote the second half of this course to looking at the Cold War in a variety of facets. We'll be looking at some authoritarian leaders, people like Castro, Mao, Stalin. We'll be talking about the role of Cold War crises, right? Those proxy battles that happen in places like Suez, Cuba, Korea, Vietnam, Hungary, those impacts where the forces of American democracy and Russian Stalinistic communism come in to clash with one another. And then lastly, to kind of tie back to that theme of relevancy and engagement, we're going to think about how the Cold War continues to impact politics, global politics to this day, what the legacy of that is. We'll also be looking at how the Cold War changed the way that Americans talked about their own history and how, because of Cold War doctrines, we have a different conception of our own past, particularly when it comes to civil rights. So what does this mean for what we do in our class? We do a lot of different things. I'm trying to keep it as authentic to what we would be doing if we were brick and mortar, albeit virtually. So we're still doing discussions. We're still looking at songs to get their meanings. We're still reading documents. We're still doing some simulations. We're still doing primary source work. So a lot of the same things we've done traditionally in the classroom, we're still doing, just translating to a digital format. If you've got any questions about what that looks like, I'd love to hear from you and kind of show you some of the things that we're doing. And that is basically it for my presentation. The only thing I want to tell you before I leave you is that we are just about to start IB test registration. Test registration is going to run from the 13th through the 6th of November. And I will be sending a more complex, complete email to you all and your students about what the IB test entails, how we'll be prepared for it, and how to register. But don't hesitate, again, to reach out with any questions or comments or concerns about the class, about IB test, anything like that. You'll notice that this video is in a lovely discussion board. This is something I utilize a lot with your students in class, is discussion boards to get the conversation going. And I'd ask if you have any sort of general questions or comments about IB, about this course, about what we're doing, go ahead and post that question to that main chat discussion board, and I will get back to you with an answer. And then all of you parents can check it out. If you've got more of a pressing concern about your student individually, just go ahead and email me that. That way it's, we're able to keep it private and confidential. So that is all for me and my Back to School Night video. I'm bummed that I'm not getting to see you in person, but I hope that this kind of makes up for it a little bit. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your evening.